The power lines went dead at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, plunging Marcus Chen's organic farm into darkness just hours before the harvest that would save his family's legacy. Karen Whitmore stood at her kitchen window, smugly watching the chaos unfold. Across the fence line, believing her petty revenge was complete. But she had no idea that cutting power to a commercial farm operation wasn't just vindictive, it was a federal crime. And when the FBI knocked on her door 63 days later with a warrant and handcuffs, Karen's world exploded in ways she never saw coming. Some battles you think you've won, until you realize you've just declared war on the wrong enemy. The hum of the refrigeration units died first. Marcus Chen jolted awake in the pre-dawn darkness, his body attuned to every sound on the 40-acre organic farm that had been in his family for 3 generations. The sudden silence was deafening. No cooling systems. No irrigation pumps. No processing equipment. Just the distant sound of his prize-winning Holstein cattle lowing in confusion as their automated feeding system ground to a halt. Sarah. Marcus shook his wife's shoulder. The power's out. Sarah Chen sat up immediately, her nurse's training making her alert within seconds. Storm. Marcus was already pulling on his jeans, his weathered hands fumbling for his phone's flashlight. Skies clear. This is something else. They rushed outside into the crisp October air, their breath visible in the moonlight. The farm that should have been humming with activity was eerily quiet. But across the property line, Karen Whitmore's McMansion blazed with light, every window glowing like a beacon of mockery. That vindictive, Sarah caught herself, but her meaning was clear. Marcus stared at the power lines that fed his operation, following them with his eyes to where they connected to the main grid. Everything looked intact from this distance. But the selective nature of the outage told him everything he needed to know. His phone buzzed with the first of what would become a cascade of disaster. His farm manager, Diego Ramirez, his voice tight with panic. Marcus, the cooling systems for the organic certification harvest are down. If we can't get power back in the next 6 hours, we're looking at a total loss. 3 months of premium vegetables gone. Marcus closed his eyes. The organic certification harvest wasn't just produce, it was their lifeline. The contracts with Whole Foods and 3 high-end restaurant chains represented nearly 60% of their annual revenue. Without it, they'd lose the farm. How much are we talking about? Sarah asked, reading his expression. Conservative estimate. 40,000 in immediate losses. But if we can't fulfill the organic contracts? Marcus's voice caught. We're looking at breach of contract penalties that could reach 6 figures. The number hung in the air between them like a death sentence. By sunrise, Marcus had confirmed his worst fears. The power company's emergency line informed him that service to his property had been temporarily discontinued at the customer's request. When he demanded to know which customer, they referred him to Karen Whitmore. Mrs. Whitmore called yesterday evening, the utility representative explained with bureaucratic indifference. She claimed there was a dangerous electrical hazard on the shared line that feeds both properties. As the original account holder from when this was all one parcel, she has authorization to request emergency disconnection. Marcus stared at his phone in disbelief. This is 40 acres of commercial farmland. We have separate accounts, separate meters. I understand your frustration, sir. But our records show the main line was established under the Whitmore account in 1987. Legally, she has the right to request service interruption if she perceives a safety hazard. There is no safety hazard. That may be true, sir, but we have to investigate any reported safety concerns. Our earliest available appointment for inspection is next Tuesday. Next Tuesday. Marcus's voice cracked. That's 6 days from now. I'm sorry, sir. That's the best we can do. Marcus ended the call and immediately dialed his lawyer, Patricia Vance, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd handled the farm's legal matters for over a decade. Patricia, I need to know my options. Can Karen legally do this? There was a long pause before Patricia responded. Marcus, this is complicated. When your grandfather bought this land from the Whitmores in 1987, the power infrastructure was already established. The legal language around utility easements from that era is murky. So she can just destroy my business on a whim. Not legally, no. But proving malicious intent and getting emergency relief are two different things. I can file for an injunction, but do it. File everything. I don't care what it costs. As Marcus ended the call, he found Diego waiting by the barn, his usually steady demeanor shaken. The organic inspector is coming tomorrow for the final certification review, Diego said. Without refrigeration, without the processing equipment running. Marcus, we are going to fail certification. 3 years of organic practices, down the drain. Marcus looked across his fields, where rows of premium vegetables that should have been harvested and processed were already beginning to show signs of stress in the unexpected heat wave. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory, the land provides, mijo, but only if you protect it like family. Some protection he'd turned out to be. At 10 a.m., Marcus walked to Karen Whitmore's front door. The pristine white colonial sat like a monument to suburban superiority, complete with manicured lawns and decorative fountains that probably used more water in a day than his irrigation system used in a week. Karen answered on the first knock, as if she'd been waiting. She was a woman in her early 60s with silver hair styled into aggressive perfection and the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. Why, Marcus? How unexpected. Turn the power back on, Karen. I'm afraid I don't know what you mean. Her voice dripped with false innocence. I simply reported a safety concern to the utility company. Surely you wouldn't want anyone to be endangered by faulty electrical work. Marcus stepped closer, close enough to see the satisfaction gleaming in her pale blue eyes. There is no faulty electrical work, and you know it. You're trying to destroy my farm because of a property line dispute that was settled 2 months ago. Settled? Karen's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the venom beneath. You mean when that corrupt county assessor sided with you? When you stole 6 inches of my property line and then had the audacity to put up that hideous fence? The survey was accurate. The fence is exactly where it should be, exactly where it's been for 37 years. That fence blocks my view of the mountain. It decreases my property value. And your agricultural activities create noise and odors that make my life unbearable. Marcus bit back his first 3 responses, all of which would have made the situation worse. Karen, I'm asking you nicely. Turn the power back on. We can discuss the fence later. I'm afraid that's impossible. Karen's smile returned, wide and predatory. The utility company was very concerned about the safety issues I described. They'll need to conduct a thorough investigation before service can be restored. What safety issues? You made them up. Did I? Karen tilted her head with mock concern. I could have sworn I saw sparks coming from that transformer near the property line. Very dangerous-looking sparks. The kind that could cause fires. Or explosions. The calculated nature of her lie hit Marcus like a physical blow. This wasn't just spite, this was premeditated destruction. You realize you're not just hurting me, Marcus said quietly. I have 12 employees who depend on this farm. Their families, perhaps you should have thought of that before you decided to be such an inconsiderate neighbor. Marcus turned away before he said something that would land him in jail. But as he walked back across the disputed property line, Karen called after him. Oh, Marcus. I hope your insurance is up to date. I hear crop failures can be so financially devastating. That afternoon, Marcus stood in his processing facility, watching thousands of dollars in organic produce slowly rot without refrigeration. His employees worked frantically to salvage what they could, running extension cords from the backup generator that was never designed to power the entire operation. We can save maybe 20% of the harvest, Diego reported, his shirt soaked with sweat. The rest? He gestured helplessly at the wilting vegetables. Sarah found Marcus at sunset, sitting on the porch swing his grandfather had built, staring at the fields that represented everything his family had worked to build. Patricia called. She said softly. The injunction hearing is set for Friday. But the judge warned her that utility companies have broad discretion in safety matters. Friday's too late. By Friday, we'll have lost everything. Sarah sat beside him, taking his work-roughened hand in hers. We'll figure this out. We always Do. This is different, Sarah. This isn't weather or market fluctuations. This is someone actively trying to destroy us, and the law is on her side. A car pulled into their driveway, Patricia Vance's silver BMW. The lawyer emerged with a briefcase and an expression that didn't bode well. I've been researching the utility easement situation, Patricia said without preamble. Karen's legal position is stronger than I initially thought. The original power line agreement from 1987 does give her certain rights as the primary account holder. Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath him. So that's it. She can just shut us down whenever she feels. Lee. FBI Special Agent Jennifer Cortez arrived at the Chen farm at 7:23 a.m. on Thursday morning, driving an unmarked black sedan that looked distinctly federal despite its attempt at anonymity. She was a compact woman in her late 30s with intelligent dark eyes and the kind of controlled energy that suggested she'd rather be chasing real terrorists than investigating suburban neighbor disputes. Marcus met her at the gate, where the backup generator's diesel fumes mixed with the sickly sweet smell of rotting produce. The financial devastation was visible everywhere: wilted crops, idle equipment, and the haunted expressions of farm workers who knew their jobs hung in the balance. Mr. Chen. Agent Cortez extended a firm handshake. I understand you've been the victim of what might constitute infrastructure sabotage. That's one way to put it. Marcus gestured toward the fields where Diego and his crew were frantically trying to salvage anything marketable. Day 3 without power. We are looking at total crop failure. Agent Cortez pulled out a tablet and began documenting the scene with methodical precision. Walk me through exactly what happened, starting from the beginning. Marcus recounted the timeline while Agent Cortez took notes and photographs. When he mentioned Karen's text message, her expression sharpened. You still have the phone that received the message? Right here. Marcus handed over his device. Agent Cortez connected it to a small device that began downloading data. Mr. Chen, I need to be clear about something. The FBI doesn't typically investigate neighbor disputes, even ones involving utility service. But your lawyer was right, interstate commerce changes everything. She looked up from her tablet, studying Marcus's face. Your organic certification contracts involve shipments to California, New York, and Florida. The economic impact of this alleged sabotage crosses state lines, which makes it a federal matter. Alleged. Until we prove intent and coordination, it remains alleged. Agent Cortez's smile was razor-thin. But between you and me, false reports to utility companies resulting in economic terrorism rarely happen by accident. They walked toward the property line, where the disputed fence stood like a monument to suburban pettiness. Karen's house loomed beyond it, every window seemingly positioned to survey the Chen property. Tell me about your relationship with Mrs. Whitmore. Marcus chose his words carefully. Non-existent until 2 months ago. The property line survey revealed that the fence my grandfather built in 1987 was actually 6 inches onto what we thought was our land. Turns out it was 6 inches onto what she thought was her land. 6 inches. Agent Cortez made a note. And that justified this level of retaliation in her mind. She claimed the fence blocked her mountain view and decreased her property value. When the county sided with the survey and allowed us to keep the fence where it was, Marcus shrugged. Things escalated. How so? Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her the photos he'd been documenting. Anonymous complaints to the health department about our organic certification. Anonymous reports to the EPA about groundwater contamination that doesn't exist. Anonymous tips to the IRS suggesting we are underreporting income. Agent Cortez studied the timeline. All anonymous, but all traced back to calls from her phone number. Her landline, according to the call logs. Patricia subpoenaed. Patricia. Our lawyer. Patricia Vance. Agent Cortez made another note. I'll need to speak with her. And I'll need to speak with Mrs. Whitmore. As if summoned, Karen appeared on her back deck, watering plants from an ornate watering can. She wore a flowing white dress that made her look like she was posing for a magazine spread titled Gracious Country Living. Speak of the devil, Marcus muttered. Agent Cortez studied Karen through the fence slats. Has she made any direct threats against you or your property? Marcus hesitated. The text message was evidence, but Karen had been more subtle in person. Not exactly threats. More like a predictions. Yesterday she suggested I hope my insurance is up to date because crop failures can be financially devastating. And you interpreted that as a threat. Agent Cortez, she cut power to a commercial farming operation 3 days before a harvest that represents 60% of our annual income. Then she sent me a text saying this is just the beginning. How else would you interpret it? Agent Cortez's expression remained neutral, but Marcus caught a flicker of something, anger, maybe, or recognition. She'd probably seen this pattern before. Mr. Chen, I'm going to need you to compile every communication you've had with Mrs. Whitmore, every document related to the property dispute, and every record of financial losses resulting from the power outage. Can you have that ready by tomorrow? Yes, but Marcus paused as his phone rang. Diego's name appeared on the screen. Marcus, you need to get back here now. The organic certification inspector just arrived for the final review. Marcus's blood turned to ice water. But she's not supposed to be here until next week. She says. There was a complaint filed yesterday claiming we were falsifying our organic standards. She's here to do an emergency investigation. Agent Cortez was close enough to hear both sides of the conversation. Her eyebrows rose as Marcus ended the call. Another anonymous complaint, she asked. Has to be. Marcus started walking quickly back toward the main building. If we fail this inspection, we lose 3 years of organic certification. That's not just this harvest, that's our entire business model. They arrived at the processing facility to find Diana Walsh, the state organic certification inspector, documenting everything with a camera and clipboard. She was a severe woman in her 50s who took her job with the kind of intensity usually reserved for criminal investigations. Mr. Chen, Diana looked up from photographing the backup generator setup. I need to understand why your organic produce is being processed using diesel-powered equipment. That's not in compliance with certification standards. Because someone cut our power. Marcus fought to keep his voice level. This is an emergency situation. We are using backup power to prevent total crop failure. I understand there may be circumstances, but the complaint I received suggested you've been using non-certified equipment for weeks. The caller was very specific about timeline and procedures. Agent Cortez stepped forward, showing her badge. Ms. Walsh, I'm investigating the circumstances that led to the power outage. Can you tell me exactly what the complaint alleged? Diana consulted her notes. Anonymous tip received yesterday at 4:30 p.m. Female caller claimed that Chen Organic Farms has been using diesel generators for primary processing for over a month, falsifying documentation to maintain organic certification. That's completely false. Marcus's composure finally cracked. We've never used generators for primary processing. The only reason they're running now is because our power was illegally cut 3 days ago. I'm just doing my job, Mr. Chen. I have to investigate all complaints. Agent Cortez made notes while Diana continued her inspection. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Karen had orchestrated this to maximize damage, ensuring that even if the power was restored, the organic certification would be compromised after Diana left with promises to review the findings and issue a determination within 10 business days. Marcus sat in his office with Agent Cortez, staring at 3 years of organic certification paperwork that might become worthless. She's systematic, Agent Cortez observed. First the power outage to create the crisis, then the inspection complaint to prevent recovery. This shows premeditation and escalation. What does that mean for the investigation? It means we're not dealing with a simple neighbor dispute anymore. This is coordinated economic warfare. Marcus's phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. How was your inspection? Hope you're prepared for what comes next. A concerned neighbor. Agent Cortez immediately photographed the message. Mr. Chen, I need to ask, do you have any security cameras on the property? Some. Why? Because I want to know if Mrs. Whitmore has been conducting surveillance of your operation. These complaints are too detailed and too well-timed to be based on casual observation. They spent the next hour reviewing security footage from the past month. Most of it was routine, workers coming and going, delivery trucks, the normal rhythm of farm life. But on 3 separate occasions, the cameras had captured Karen Whitmore walking along the property line with what appeared to be professional surveying equipment. What's she measuring? Agent Cortez asked. Marcus studied the footage. I have no idea. The property boundaries are clearly marked. There's nothing to survey. Unless she's not surveying property lines. Unless she's surveying your operation. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. You think she's been documenting our procedures? Looking for violations? I think she's been looking for weaknesses. Ways to attack your business that you wouldn't see coming. Agent Cortez's phone rang and she stepped outside to take the call. When she returned, her expression was grim. That was the utility company's security department. They've had 3 more reports of electrical hazards on your line in the past 48 hours. All from the same caller. Karen. All requesting immediate disconnection of service. The utility company is starting to get suspicious, but their policy requires them to investigate every reported safety hazard. Marcus stared at the security monitors, watching his workers try to salvage their livelihoods with inadequate equipment and failing. At 6:47 a.m. on Friday morning, Karen Whitmore made her biggest mistake yet. Marcus was in the barn trying to hand milk the cows, a laborious process without the automated systems, when his phone exploded with notifications. First, a text from the unknown number, fire department on the way. Hope your insurance covers arson investigations. A concerned neighbor. Then his landline rang. The automated voice of the county emergency dispatcher. This is an emergency notification for Chen Organic Farms. Fire department has been dispatched to your location for a reported structure fire. Please evacuate immediately. Marcus ran outside to find 3 fire trucks screaming down his driveway, sirens blaring, followed by an ambulance and 2 police cars. The lead fire truck's captain, a burly man named Rodriguez whom Marcus had known for years, jumped down from the cab with his team already shooting up. Where's the fire, Marcus? There is no fire. Marcus gestured frantically at his buildings, none of which showed any sign of smoke or flame. Someone called in a false report. Captain Rodriguez looked around in confusion. Dispatch said we had a confirmed structure fire with possible casualties. The caller was very specific, said she could see flames coming from your main barn and people trapped inside. The only people here are me and Diego, and we are both standing right here. Agent Cortez's sedan came racing up the driveway, having heard the emergency dispatch over her police scanner. She emerged already talking on her phone, coordinating with someone who was clearly taking detailed notes. Captain Rodriguez. Agent. Cortez flashed her badge. FBI. This is connected to an ongoing federal investigation. Can you tell me exactly what the caller reported? Female voice, called in at 6:41 a.m. Said she could see heavy smoke and flames coming from the main barn. Structure at Chen Organic Farms. Claimed she heard people screaming for help inside. Marcus felt his blood pressure spike. That's completely impossible. The barn's been empty since we lost power. No one's been in there except to check on equipment. Agent Cortez was already on her radio. This is Agent Cortez requesting immediate phone trace on the emergency call to County Dispatch at 6:41 a.m. regarding Chen Organic Farms. While they waited, Captain Rodriguez deployed his team to inspect the barn and surrounding buildings. It took less than 15 minutes to confirm what everyone already knew: there was no fire, no smoke, no emergency of any kind. Whoever called this in, Captain Rodriguez told Agent Cortez, just cost the county about $15,000 in emergency response resources. That's a felony. Agent Cortez's radio crackled. Agent Cortez, this is dispatch. Emergency call traced to landline. Registered to Karen M. Whitmore, 1247, Mountain View Drive. Every head turned toward Karen's house, where she stood at her kitchen window watching the scene unfold. When she realized they were all looking at her, she quickly stepped back from the window. "That's it," Agent Cortez said grimly. She just crossed the line from harassment into emergency services fraud. Marcus watched the fire trucks begin their departure, thinking about the cost and chaos of the false alarm. What happens now? Now we arrest Karen Whitmore. But as Agent Cortez started toward her car, Marcus's phone rang again. This time it was Patricia Vance, and she sounded shaken. "Marcus, you need to know, Karen just filed a civil lawsuit against you and the farm." "For what?" "Everything she can think of. Nuisance, property damage, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and about 6 other claims. She's asking for $200,000 in damages and an immediate injunction to shut down your farming operations." Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his feet again. Even if the criminal charges stuck, a civil lawsuit could drag on for years and cost him everything in legal fees. "Patricia, can she do that? File a lawsuit while she's being investigated by the FBI?" "Unfortunately, yes. Civil and criminal proceedings are separate. She's clearly trying to create as much pressure as possible." Agent Cortez was listening to half the conversation. When Marcus ended the call, she shook her head in what might have been admiration. "She's smart, I'll give her that. File a civil suit to make you look like you're both just feuding neighbors instead of victim and perpetrator. Makes the criminal case harder to prosecute." "So what do we do?" "We accelerate our timeline." Agent Cortez checked her watch. "I was planning to build a stronger case before making an arrest, but she's forcing our hand." A new voice interrupted them. "Excuse me, are you Agent Cortez?" They turned to find a woman in her 30s with shoulder-length red hair and the kind of expensive suit that suggested corporate legal representation. She carried a briefcase and an expression of professional concern. "I'm Amanda Pierce, attorney for Mrs. Whitmore. My client would like to arrange a voluntary interview to clear up any misunderstandings about the recent utility and emergency service reports." Agent Cortez's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. How thoughtful of Mrs. Whitmore to retain counsel so quickly. Most innocent people don't lawyer up quite this fast. My client simply wants to be cooperative while ensuring her rights are protected. Of course she does. Agent Cortez handed Amanda Pierce her business card. Tell your client that if she wants to confess to filing false reports, she can do it at the federal building downtown. Otherwise, we'll be obtaining arrest warrants. Amanda Pierce's professional composure flickered slightly. Agent Cortez, surely we can resolve this matter without criminal charges. Mrs. Whitmore is a pillar of the community, a retired teacher with no prior criminal record. Mrs. Whitmore is also someone who has committed multiple federal crimes in the past week. Agent Cortez's voice carried the cold authority of someone who had done this many times before. Emergency services fraud. Filing false reports with utility companies, obstruction of interstate commerce, and conspiracy to commit economic terrorism. Economic terrorism. Amanda Pierce couldn't hide her shock. Agent Cortez, this is a neighbor dispute over a property line. Surely you're not seriously considering terrorism charges. I'm seriously considering whatever charges fit the evidence. And the evidence shows systematic, premeditated attacks on a commercial farming operation that conducts interstate business. Marcus watched this legal dance with growing amazement. Less than a week ago, he'd been worried about a harvest schedule. Now he was apparently the victim of domestic terrorism. Amanda Pierce regrouped quickly. My client disputes any claim of systematic attacks. She has legitimate concerns about agricultural operations being conducted so close to residential property. Then, she should have filed complaints through proper channels, not sabotaged power lines and filed false emergency reports. Alleged sabotage. Alleged false reports. Agent Cortez stepped closer to Amanda Pierce, close enough that her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Counselor, let me explain something to you. I have recorded phone calls from your client to utility companies reporting non-existent electrical hazards. I have security footage of her conducting surveillance of Mr. Chen's operation. I have text messages from her phone threatening further action. And now I have her on record filing a false fire emergency that could have resulted in real people dying in real emergencies while our resources were deployed to her fake crisis. Amanda Pierce's face had gone pale. Oh. I need to speak with my client. You do that. Agent Cortez turned back to Marcus. And while you're at it, explain to her that cooperating now might be the difference between 5 years in federal prison and 25 to life. As Amanda Pierce hurried toward Karen's house, Agent Cortez's phone rang. She answered with a clipped Cortez, then her expression began to change from professional satisfaction to something approaching amazement. Are you sure about that? Yes, I'll hold. She covered the phone and looked at Marcus. The utility company's fraud investigation unit. They've been analyzing Karen's complaints and they found something interesting. What? Apparently Karen didn't just call about your property. She's been filing false safety reports about electrical infrastructure all over the county. Marcus stared at her. What do you mean? Agent Cortez uncovered the phone. Yes, I'm still here. 17 separate properties. All in the past 6 months. Jesus. She ended the call and looked at Marcus with something approaching awe. Karen Whitmore has filed false electrical safety reports about 17 different properties. In the past 6 months. Restaurants, retail stores, other farms, even a medical clinic. Why? The utility company thinks it's insurance fraud. File a false report, cause a power outage, then claim damages from the utility company for business losses. Marcus felt his worldview shifting again. So I'm not her only target. Not even close. You're just the one who fought back. A commotion from Karen's house drew their attention. Through the windows, they could see Karen pacing frantically while Amanda Pierce sat at the kitchen table with papers spread everywhere. Karen's gestures were becoming increasingly animated, and even from this distance, it was clear the conversation wasn't going well. My guess, Agent Cortez said, is that Karen's lawyer just learned about the other 16 properties. Marcus's phone buzzed with yet another text from the unknown number, but this time the message was different. This is all a misunderstanding. We need to talk. Karen. Agent Cortez photographed the message, then looked up at Marcus with something approaching delight. Well. Direct contact at last. No mo. The county emergency dispatch system collapsed at 7:23 a.m. Agent Cortez's radio exploded with overlapping distress calls as fire departments, paramedics, and police units raced to 17 simultaneous emergencies across 3 townships. Every available responder was committed, stretched impossibly thin across a coordinated disaster that existed only in Karen Whitmore's imagination. Marcus stood in his processing facility staring at 3 months of destroyed documentation, organic certification records, FDA compliance forms, financial records, and insurance paperwork scattered across the floor like confetti. But it wasn't random destruction. Someone had specifically targeted every document needed to rebuild his business after the power sabotage. This is surgical, Agent Cortez observed, photographing the devastation. Whoever did this knew exactly what to take and what to destroy. Diego emerged from the back office, his face grim. The fireproof filing cabinet was opened with the correct combination. No signs of forced entry anywhere. They had keys and knew the security codes. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. Only 3 people know those codes. You, me, and Sarah. Where's Sarah now? Agent Cortez asked. She left an hour ago for the bank. We needed to discuss emergency loan options. Marcus trailed off as the implications hit him. Jesus. She's alone. Agent Cortez was already on her radio. This is Agent Cortez requesting immediate patrol unit dispatched to First National Bank downtown. Possible threat to civilian. The radio crackled with static and chaos. Agent Cortez, all units are responding to emergency calls. No available patrol units at this time. Marcus grabbed his keys. I'm going after her. We are both going. But first, Agent Cortez's phone rang and she answered it with increasing tension. When? Are you absolutely sure? Track it. She ended the call and looked at Marcus with an expression that might have been respect if it weren't so terrifying. The emergency calls to dispatch didn't come from Karen's landline this time. They came from 17 different cell phones, all purchased yesterday with cash from different locations around the county. She has help. She has a network. This isn't a crazy neighbor anymore, Marcus. This is organized crime. They raced toward town in Marcus's pickup truck while Agent Cortez coordinated with her field office. The radio chatter painted a picture of systematic chaos: fire trucks discovering non-existent emergencies, paramedics finding empty buildings, police officers realizing they'd been deployed to false addresses. Agent Cortez, the dispatcher's voice was tight with strain, "We're getting reports of actual emergencies now, but we don't have units available to respond." What kind of emergencies? Break-ins, vandalism, theft. Someone's using the false alarm chaos to hit real targets. Marcus pressed harder on the accelerator. She's not just destroying my farm. She's using it as cover to hit everyone she targeted with the utility fraud. 17 different properties, all compromised simultaneously while emergency services are chasing ghosts. Agent Cortez shook her head in what might have been admiration. I've never seen anything this coordinated outside of organized crime. Families. They reached downtown to find First National Bank's parking lot eerily empty except for Sarah's Honda Civic. Through the windows, Marcus could see people moving around inside, but something felt wrong about their positions and movements. Agent Cortez drew her sidearm. Stay behind me. If this goes bad, you run and call for backup. They approached the bank's entrance cautiously. The doors were unlocked, but the usual security guard was nowhere to be seen. Inside, they found Sarah sitting at a desk across from Loan Officer Jennifer Walsh, but both women looked strained and uncomfortable. Marcus. Sarah's relief was palpable. Thank God you're here. Jennifer Walsh looked up with an expression that didn't match her words. Mr. Chen, perfect timing. We were just discussing your loan application. Agent Cortez's hand stayed near her weapon. Something was off about the scene, too staged, too careful. Where's your security guard? Agent Cortez asked. Called away on an emergency, Jennifer replied smoothly. Some kind of countywide situation. Marcus noticed that Jennifer's hands were shaking slightly, and Sarah kept glancing toward the back offices. Sarah, we need to go. Now. I'm afraid that's not possible. The new voice came from behind them. Marcus turned to find Amanda Pierce emerging from the bank manager's office, but she wasn't alone. With her was a man in his 40s wearing a utility company uniform and carrying what looked like electrical testing equipment. Mrs. Chen has just signed some very important documents, Amanda continued. Loan applications that will help resolve this unfortunate neighbor dispute. Agent Cortez drew her weapon smoothly. FBI. Everyone keep their hands visible. Amanda Pierce smiled without humor. Agent Cortez, you're interfering with legitimate business transactions. Like hell I am. Agent Cortez kept her gun trained on the utility worker. Sir, I need to see identification and an explanation of why you're in a bank during a county emergency. The man reached slowly for his pocket and produced a utility company ID. Jake Morrison, Emergency Response Supervisor. We are conducting safety inspections of all commercial buildings due to the electrical problems reported this morning. What electrical problems? 17 separate reports of dangerous conditions. We are checking every building in the downtown area. Marcus felt the trap closing around them. Agent Cortez, this is all connected. The emergency calls, the bank meeting, everything. Oh no. Agent Cortez's voice was deadly calm. Mr. Morrison, you're going to put your equipment down slowly and step away from Mrs. Chen. Agent Cortez, Amanda Pierce interrupted, my client. Mrs. Whitmore has filed a federal complaint alleging that you've been harassing her and ignoring evidence of real safety hazards. Your client is under federal investigation for fraud and domestic terrorism. Alleged fraud. And the terrorism charges are obviously politically motivated harassment of a concerned citizen. Marcus watched this legal dance while studying Jake Morrison, who was positioning himself between Agent Cortez and Sarah. The man's utility uniform looked authentic, but something about his posture suggested military or law enforcement training. "Sarah," Marcus said carefully, "what documents did you sign?" Sarah's voice was strained. "Emergency loan applications." Jennifer said if we didn't sign them immediately, the bank would have to call in our existing agricultural loans due to the business disruption. Marcus felt his blood pressure spike. That's not how agricultural loans work. "Jennifer, what the hell is going on here?" Jennifer Walsh's professional composure finally cracked. "Mr. Chen, these people. They said they'd shut down the bank's electrical systems if I didn't cooperate. I have 40 employees and customers to think about." Agent Cortez's radio erupted with new chaos. "All units, we have confirmed break-ins at First National Bank, Morrison's Hardware, Chen Organic Farms Processing Facility, and 14 other locations. Suspects appear to be using utility company vehicles and uniforms." "Jake Morrison," Agent Cortez said coldly, "you're under arrest for impersonating a utility worker and conspiracy." Morrison's hand moved toward his equipment bag, but Agent Cortez was faster. "Don't even think about it." Amanda Pierce stepped forward, her legal training making her believe she could still control the situation. "Agent Cortez, you're making a serious mistake. Mrs. Whitmore has documentation proving that Mr. Chen's farming operation violates multiple zoning and environmental regulations. Like the documentation someone destroyed an hour ago." "I don't know what you mean." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Karen's number. "Your wife is very pretty. It would be a shame if something happened to her." Karen. Agent Cortez read the message over his shoulder, and her expression went arctic. "That's it. We are done playing games." She keyed her radio. "This is Agent Cortez declaring a federal emergency. I need immediate backup at First National Bank, downtown. We have multiple suspects, possible hostage situation, and credible threats against civilians." The response was immediate and devastating. "Agent Cortez, backup is not available. We have active shooter situations at 3 different locations, plus the 17 false emergency calls. You're on your own." Amanda Pierce smiled with genuine satisfaction. "Agent Cortez, it appears you're outnumbered and outmaneuvered." But she'd made a crucial mistake. While delivering her taunt, she'd positioned herself within arm's reach of Agent Cortez, who moved with the kind of speed that comes from extensive FBI training. One moment Amanda Pierce was standing confidently next to Jake Morrison, the next she was face down on the bank floor with federal handcuffs around her wrists. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and threatening federal officers." Jake Morrison reached for his equipment bag, but Marcus was closer and angrier. 3 days of watching his life's work destroyed had left him with very little patience for people threatening his wife. Morrison found himself sprawled across the loan officer's desk with Marcus's knee in his back. "Sarah, get behind the counter." But Sarah was staring at something over Marcus's shoulder. "Marcus, look." He turned to see Karen Whitmore walking through the bank's front entrance, flanked by 2 more men in utility company uniforms. She moved with the calm confidence of someone who believed she'd already won. "Agent Cortez," Karen said, "PL.